Oh God.
Illustration, isolation, illustration, isolation.
Okay. All right. So this is episode like, everybody see my screen? I'm jumping screen
Yep.
to screen.
It's episode 285.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, exactly. So tonight is a very special night. We're really excited to have let me see here. Let me see how I can toggle through this. Jesus. All right. Does it look all weird now?
Looks great.
Okay, cool. All right. So tonight we've got a very special guest. We've got Chris Buck. For those of you who don't know, I know this isn't a photography program. I come from world photography. I was assisting in the commercial world for quite a long time. And I felt like I got to work under some really cool names. Everybody I worked under always talked about Chris Buck. Chris Buck is an icon, one of the most respected and accomplished photographers working, and he's just the GOAT. I mean, this intro was thanks to Matthew Salacuse, who was a previous episode attendee, and he has helped us out big time with photography in the past. Matthew helped make this connection. And so this is what we're drawing tonight. Nick Offerman. This is a young girl that Chris photographed. Kendrick Lamar, Jillian Anderson, and Willie Nelson. These are just like four of the collection of photography to choose from. The people that he has captured is insane. I was putting together a list of all of the people that Chris Buck has photographed and done stunning from like a hidden moment in their life or an interesting angles or interesting depiction of a person that really captures what you call their essence, to like highly conceptual photography that's like really deep meaning or really just thoughtful projects. He's photographed everybody. And I was putting together a list of the people he's photographed, and you're like Seth Rogen, Willie Nelson, and then President Barack Obama. Like, there's nobody you can like put before President Barack Obama and it doesn't sound like insane, because you're just like, it's President Barack Obama. I mean, he's photographed a president, one of the best presidents to photograph too, you know. So I'm really excited. To say the least. I know it's probably pretty obvious, but thank you all for drawing with us. Ray, I don't think you're sharing your screen yet. There we go. Yeah. But I am excited. We are going to have Salacuse, and I believe Salacuse, but Chris Buck's going to be hopping in a minute. Each pose is going to be 20 to 30 minutes in length. Please draw along with us. We encourage you to post your work throughout the evening to Instagram. Please post it using hashtag illustration isolation and add visual arts passage, as well as tagging Chris Buck. I'm going to drop a link to the photo reference in case you don't have it in the chat. So go ahead and grab it there. All the tags and everything are on that webpage. So just copy and paste it. At the end of the night, we're going to scope out everybody's work. It's my favorite part of the evening. I really highly recommend sharing it. So yeah, please, happy drawing, and thanks for tuning in.
That was an excellent intro, Timmy.
Awesome.
You do have to say that Matthew's a friend of the show.
Yeah, friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
Yeah, somebody said they had some audio issues.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you did have audio issues, just let you know, thank you for tuning in. And please draw with us tonight. I'm just going to reiterate this because this is the gritty stuff. But check. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in Discord. Yeah, please post your work on Instagram with us. #illustration isolation and @visual arts passage. Yeah, I'll drop all the stuff in the chat as well.
Yep. We look at the work at the end of the night and it's awesome. We have
A lot of fun.
everything from like grandmothers to 7-year-old children drawing with us.
Mhm.
And
showing us up most of the time.
showing us up. Yeah. I remember the good old days when Felicity was the youngest drawer in the room.
Yeah.
Age 9. Now she's like
ageist
age
at all,
11.
yeah.
And
Is Felicity in college now or something?
I think so.
Yeah. Jeez.
Time flies.
Oh no, man.
Uh,
Bill, man, it's good to draw next to you again.
You too.
I forgot to text you that how much fun I had. I always have the discussions with you when I'm on on the show.
Me too.
And it's like I was like, yeah, I gotta text Bill, and then something had to run off and do something. I don't even know.
Thanks. I wanted to tell you, I got contacted by somebody about a virtual gallery. And
What do you know the name?
yeah, that's what I'm about to look up.
Okay.
I just thought of it, and I'm also now looking at this collar. I like the way you're handling the collar, where you're just like drawing the shape of it.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing this. Like, I'm gonna pull a John because John's not here, and work on one piece. He'll like this. I'll pull a John English and work on only one piece the entire time. And but it reminds me of like a Flemish portrait.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm gonna paint it like that. I'm gonna do an underpainting and then glaze in some color and things like that. It should be a lot of fun. I'm really like, I love this. All of the photographs are like incredible.
Oh, the photographs are fantastic, and much appreciate having good photos. It says virtualartists.co.uk, and it says the metaverse, the future is now exhibition.
Wow. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that.
So
the
they
future
sent
is
me a
now.
bunch.
Wow.
They sent me a bunch of stuff that I need to read through.
Hey man, it's definitely it's what I think it's like one of those things where like back in the day when people said that they were displaying their art on the internet, and it was like, what? Not in print. And that's like a little goofy. I think that's the point of time where we're at now. So
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I haven't heard about it. The project I'm involved in is called WooBud, and it was it's helmed by Mark Carter, who
Okay.
I think I mentioned.
What's it called?
WooBud. So WUBUD.
Okay. Thank you for spelling it, because I would never be able to spell it.
No, yeah, neither would I. I had to have it spelled out too. So what are you drawing with?
I'm drawing with a new pastel on gray toned paper, even though it probably doesn't look like it because it's probably looking white. But
Nice.
I was going to draw with ink tonight, but I was painting right before I came up here, down here, paintings upstairs, and don't have it together to do that. So
yeah. Well, I mean, this is the next best thing. I really love working on tone paper. I have a whole bunch of it. I gotta do that.
me too. I want to buy a bunch. Like, I contacted Mohawk Paper and I was trying to get some paper from them, but
yeah
and I can do it. It's just getting, like, I'm an individual, not a printer, and
Right.
they're just like, yeah, we don't really make drawing paper, you know. So getting samples to figure out what the heck I want to use
Yeah.
is the barrier there.
Did you try putting on an English accent or something?
I
Maybe they
should,
understand.
yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
That would be really good. Yeah.
You know, you could,
My organization.
yeah. Or you could say like I mean, you could like, I used to when I adjunct, you know, or you could just say I'm, you know, Bill Cope Studios or something like that.
Yeah.
I've had colleagues that have done that, and it's worked out pretty well for them.
Oh no, and I'm not a, you know, anything I can do to make it sound like I'm legit.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Um,
That's pretty much what it's like, right?
this morning though, I was drawing on my iPad. And,
Oh, nice. You posted some really awesome stuff with that.
thanks.
How's it been?
Oh, it's fun. It's you know, the surface is weird because it's so slick, and I've used
Yeah.
one of those. I've used one of those like pencil cover things before,
Yeah.
but my cats kind of destroyed that. And
Oh no, really?
yeah, so I've got a second one I need to put on. It, like, imagine trying to put something up, like put a cover on
yeah.
an iPad while a cat's like
Pawing
annoying
at it.
and wanting to, yeah.
You know, the I think it's called Pen Tips, the one that I use because I have a first generation iPad Pro, so I don't have like the newer one.
Yeah.
But they came out with a brand new version of, because their tips used to be compatible with both of them, you know, obviously because it was just a tip that you put on, like a silicone tip.
Yeah.
But now they have an actual cap that you screw in,
Yes.
you know, which is you know, if I had that iPad, I would definitely like. I'll see if I can send you the thing for it. That way, it's you can't take it off. Like it doesn't fall off like this silicone tips can do sometimes. You know.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. But I liked it. I mean, I like the hardest thing is there's just so many tools, you know.
Oh yeah.
And so I just had to limit it to just a couple of tools, and but it allowed me to do some fun stuff, and I even did a drawing of Timmy.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, it was.
It's like a Baywatch, like running into the surf.
It was kind of like that.
Oh my God, it was
It was
almost like that.
amazing.
Cassandra. Yeah, I'm so happy you came in right at this moment.
I said it has to be Timmy's new profile picture.
It is.
Why
I did it.
why
I did
isn't it?
It is. I changed my profile pic.
Yeah, I'm so
Very
flattered.
happy.
But
Gotta see this.
first, I sent it to Timmy before I posted it because I wanted his okay.
Nice of you.
Bill, 3 letters, NFT, right there. Boom.
You could totally animate it and it would be awesome. Like his hair is just flowing in the wind.
That is.
Am I
The
right,
camera's
Timmy?
gently moving.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's kind of a style that I've been playing with when I doodle. So I'll talk to friends and they'll tell me stuff about their lives. Actually, it's just one friend.
Timmy.
No, another friend. She'll tell me about her life. And then I'll do like drawings of her as, you know, a cartoon.
Yeah.
It's totally fun. And so
That's awesome. That's like an alter ego. Who was it? Robert Hunt? He had like an alter ego, right? That he would do. Yeah, he called it was a different person. And like online, he was like a completely fabricated name, and it was on. He then like apparently was putting it on his blog, and he started to get jobs for that alter ego.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie Guy, there's an illustrator, and I forget his other alter ego. He had like a collage style, I think, and then.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow! I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, man, that's so. I always used to look at it and be like, that's so refreshing. I would love maybe I should do an alter ego. I just don't have that.
Oh, what would
I got to make
that
time,
would be
you know.
brilliant, right? Do you think you would, you know what you should do is you should create an alter ego as an artist, but that alter ego should also be your public enemy.
Oh
Absolutely.
my God.
You know what I'm saying?
PR. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm already looking at domain names right now.
You go to war with yourself.
Yeah. Like it's
You're
got to be
kind of-
something.
It's basically if we found out next year that like Nike actually owns Adidas.
Right.
And we'd all be like, what?
I'm almost sure that they do.
Yeah.
Well,
I like that.
think-
That's like a wildly boring conspiracy theory.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's only a few people that don't. I mean, there's people.
Yeah, no, I know. There's not, what I'm saying is not that much of a joke.
right. No,
Right,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's like there's a board of directors, and
Right.
there's like 10 people on every board of directors or whatever it seems.
If we didn't have,
That's-
if we didn't have the chat disabled, somebody'd be going after me right now. About how.
Well,
how
I
nice-
think that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are the same person.
It could
Yeah.
be.
I think he just takes off his wig
Oh,
and-
wow.
Right.
and
So Timmy, so basically, I'm a wig away, right? From being creative. I'm a wig away from
Oh my God. If your alter ego just was you with a wig.
with the wig. Because I definitely don't need the ball cap, that's getting handled.
I was just gonna say the bald cap is a lot more work.
Yeah. It actually, we're not that much of a difference,
Well, it's like the scene at the end of the original Superman where Gene Hackman finally takes his wig
Oh,
off.
oh my God, I totally forgot about that.
I was like the greatest. He was the best. He was, I love that movie, but he was really the best part of that movie.
Can you,
Before I forget, I want to just tell everybody, I'm going to drop a link to our Discord server. If you want to join the chat tonight, that's where a lot of the conversation will be. If you don't want to do Discord and deal with all that, I am going to be moderating the Q&A. We don't use the Zoom chat. One thing that I haven't said yet that I always say, whenever we have guests on who are not like core hosts, we always say, this is a live show. We don't edit the show. John English is not manning like a beep thing. So we always say like, this is a mature episode, like mature language, mature subjects. We do our best to keep it clean, but whenever we have guests, we don't promise the whatever family friendly content.
We're just excited they show up.
Yeah.
We're just so excited.
We'll take whatever we can get, and they're awesome.
And also they don't sign waivers like we do. So
Yeah.
Sign the waivers. Yeah.
It's just so funny that we assume that like our guests are going to drop F-bombs,
Well, yeah, you just
because every time Timmy's brought someone on, they have, but, it's more history. It's the teacher on this
you
one.
know that every time I have a guest on, they tend to be pretty edgy.
Yeah.
Well, we-
And I say this because I know there are a lot of young kids that listen with their parents and whatnot.
Right.
And this is definitely an earmuff episode.
And I already texted Rebecca and just been like, hey, I just want to give you a possible earmuff warning. And she was like, it's cool,
Look
handle it.
at Cassandra, man. Just like the forethought. I didn't even think about that.
Well,
until
I'm really
now.
good friends with her. We actually hang out. So it's easy to just text my friend and be like, hey.
Just a heads up.
Just a heads up. Timmy's bringing on a guest.
The thing is, in my house, like my ex and I both cussed so much. Nothing my son could have heard outside of the house would have been worse than.
Oh God.
It was just.
What a-
It was just.
moment.
It was our sense of humor,
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say your alter ego is like a clean, like a no, like
No, it wasn't
straight
just
edge
knowledge.
Annette
person.
Flanders is his
Yeah,
alter
yeah.
ego.
Yeah.
Heidi ho, neighbor.
Well, we got a lot of new people tonight. I'm going to drop a link to Discord in the chat. One of the things I do say is if you do have technical questions, because I know so far we've been just talking. It's just been a lot of fun conversation, whatnot. Please drop some info or drop your questions in the chat. I'll look.
Yeah.
Look
And join the Discord too. I mean, like what Visual Arts Passage does with Discord, it's such an incredible community. If you're really doing yourself a service by joining that Discord, and it's always so great. The questions are always on par, and there are people that are actually will answer other people's questions, without us knowing.
I'm gonna ask Elena. Can you upgrade people that are coming in to the intro room? Because I'm not gonna do that right now, unfortunately.
Do I get extra minutes because I showed up late?
You do get extra minutes, Cassandra, because you showed up. You haven't tried right? Yeah.
Timmy's managing. He's turning all the knobs now.
It was like back to school night tonight.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, get ready, Ray. It's gonna come sooner than you think, man.
Oh man. Oh
Hey,
man.
Cassandra, this is gonna freak you out, but my son's gonna be 21 in 3 months.
That's wild,
My
dude.
It's just-
God.
I can't even get my head around
I'm
it.
still trying to wrap my head around the fact that my kids are in kindergarten.
I know.
You can't think about
Jeez.
your kid being 21, and he's so hardcore and like lifts weights and does cool things like that.
Oh my God, he
Your
really.
kindergartner's lifting weights.
Oh yeah, man. He's in like competitions, right, Bill?
My
Ah.
son is in competitions. My son can deadlift 450 pounds without batting an eye.
I
Yeah.
can
We
pick
have
both my
Matthew
kids up at
Salacuse
once.
here.
All right.
Welcome,
I'm gonna-
Matthew.
Hey, Matthew, welcome back.
Hey, everybody. Wow, look at your work already.
Yeah, you can tell the content is really premium tonight. we're gonna
Hashtag
throw,
kid talk.
we're gonna be throwing this behind a paywall so fast.
Matthew, you have kids, right?
Yeah, in the other room.
Yeah. How old?
He's 7. He's in
He's
second
7.
grade. Yeah.
We were just talking about like my son's going to be 21 in 3 months.
Oh my.
I know. It's just like that means I'm not 37 years old.
we have so many new listeners tonight. People apparently really showed up for tonight. So I just want to do a quick intro. Matthew Salacuse is here, an incredible photographer, good friend of the show. This is your 3rd time joining us.
Next up, you get a t-shirt.
Yeah, your 4th time you get a t-shirt. Your 5th time you get like a little jacket.
The mug.
Yeah. No, but Matthew is I first became acquainted with Matthew's photography. Well, I've seen your photography my whole life, but I became acquainted with knowing who you were once I started seeing you photograph all of my favorite comedians.
Oh,
Matthew is an incredible photographer, an awesome, amazing director as well, which your work with Renan Hirschberg just went live.
yeah. I just directed a special that came out yesterday on YouTube, and it's doing really well. So I'm kind of excited
Congrats.
for him. And
Awesome.
yeah.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna
Anybody-
check that out.
Yeah, anyone who's a big fan of comedy, I definitely recommend Renan Hirschberg. I'll drop a link in Discord.
Oh,
just so
thanks.
you can- Yeah. No, I mean, it looks like it's doing really well. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. But Matthew was really nice enough to make the introduction to Chris Buck, who we are drawing Chris's images tonight. So
Great. Is he coming tonight?
he is, yeah. I think he's going to be here in a couple minutes.
I'll
Yeah.
text him, tell him I'm here.
Yeah.
Cool.
Matthew, I have to apologize. I meant to send you a painting in the bundle, and I just lost track of time. So it'll get to you. at some
Oh,
point.
I'm having some of that stuff framed that you sent me. So thank you guys.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, really wonderful work. It's such an honor to be part of this. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
It's really fun to draw from your.
yeah, working from your photographs was so cool.
What's it like working from Chris's work, Chris Buck's work?
Well, I'm really excited about this piece. I just showed up late, and I've been wanting to paint this Nick Offerman so bad.
I can't wait to hear some of Chris's stories about these.
It's got to be fantastic.
I'm not looking forward to drawing this collar.
Oh, that's the best part.
My God.
Yeah.
You just know Rembrandt was like, oh God, not one of those. Please God, no.
I always wondered things like, at mealtime, do they remove the collars because it is just like a place for food to drop? Like, how does this work in this time period?
I have a fun fact for you.
Oh, bring it.
A cummerbund, if you notice, it's ridged and ridged up.
Hmm.
I think its initial purpose was to catch crumbs from falling on your pants.
That is incredible.
I'll fact check myself in real time here, but I think that's the original purpose.
Cassandra,
Yeah.
Don't fact check it, Matthew. That
That's-
has to be true.
I
Okay,
want
alright.
it to be true. I need it to be true.
That's so interesting, Matthew. I was at a bar. I was actually at the coffee shop next to the cellar, right?
Oh,
Right. And in the coffee shop, there's the big window that
the
looks
one
out
that
onto.
Cafe Reggio.
Yeah, it's the one that they say they have the painting, like the paintings of I think they claim they have like a Caravaggio painting or something wild. I was like, which one's the Caravaggio painting? And he was like, yes. I was like, all right, sure. But we were sitting there like waiting for the late show, having a coffee, and there's a big window, and at the base of the window, there's a bar that goes across it with a little tiny drape. That's and you see this at bars all the time.
Yeah.
It's like table height drape that doesn't cover the window at all.
Oh
It's just like
yeah.
an aesthetic drape, and you're like, what is that for?
I wonder if it covers if you're seated and someone's walking by, they can't see you. 'Cause it's
We-
easier.
So I was like asking people, I'd be like, what do you think that drape's for? And the best answer I heard was somebody was like, it's so if somebody throws up on the street.
Oh, come on.
You
Need to fact check that in real time.
Yeah, you don't have to look at it. And I was
Don't
like,
do that. Don't bother. I think it's awesome. That's got to be true.
I know.
It's New York.
I don't want to hear that there's any other solution for any of
I mean,
these.
like 100 years ago, I bet those streets were, they're still often disgusting to look at.
I mean, just think about like the horse poo alone. Like, there's got to be.
Yeah.
so
So I have no idea.
so my friend Elisa,
What?
I'm gonna excuse myself for 1 second. I'm getting a phone call.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you put them on speakerphone, we'll all get canceled. So
so
What was it?
a very famous comedian just called him
Who called it?
Mark Normand.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I was looking down. I missed something.
You missed it. You missed it.
I was just talking to him.
Just talking to him. Yeah, that's hilarious.
So Cassandra, I'll ask Elisa because she knows all things about all obscure.
I
Like
love a
she
fun
knows-
fact.
She knows all about like Victorian clothes.
Yes, I like love those books. Like, if there's just a book of fun facts, I'm like first in line to always buy those.
Yeah. So I will ask her because she's also a voracious reader, as most writers are.
Excellent.
But yeah, the purpose of things and the names of things and all of that. So I'll see if I can find out.
Did I found out about I've been meaning, I can't believe Matthew's on here because it's so apropos. Ever since Matthew was on, and when I heard, when someone said cap to his DMX story, right? And he says no cap, right? I've been asking myself, where did that come from? Why is that? What's the etymology of that? And I found out it's like a 20s term. Can you believe that?
No.
And I'm like, what? It's short for cappers. Like, oh, you're a capper. Because I asked all of my younger like cousins, I'm like, what does no cap mean? And they couldn't answer it. It's like, where does that come from? And my one cousin was like, no, it's when you have a cap of like beer or soda and like you cap it, right? And you put it back on after opening up. You're capping because you're faking that it's closed. And I'm like, do you really think it's that involved?
I heard that it was the etymology was a cap tooth. That's what I always thought it was.
So wait, so is that what it is, or what is
like,
it?
Like either a cap or like an actual implanted gold tooth. Like a cap would be something that just goes over your tooth, like it's fake.
So something that's fake.
Oh
something
man.
that's not true, but I don't know. Yours is as pretty good too.
The bottle? The bottle? I think the bottle's right. Even though no, it's not. That was a 20-something. No offense to 20-somethings. To
Yeah.
explain.
Hey
it.
everybody, we are going to be moving on to our second pose. A few people have asked, like, do I have to draw all of them? Can I just draw one? I recommend drawing at least 4. Try to draw at least 3, actually. 20. We're doing 20-minute poses tonight. We could not pick. I mean, we tried to narrow it down. We ended up picking 5 images. So your 4th pose, you can choose option A or option B. Right now, though, we're going to move on to pose 2. It's going to be a 20-minute pose. Before you do that, though, please post your work to Instagram using hashtag illustration isolation. And then I also included Chris Buck's handle in the chat. If you have any questions, though, just let us know. And here's the man of the hour. Chris, thank you for joining.
Hello. Welcome.
Chris, we've got you on mute. Let me see if I can request.
I'm much more articulate when I'm not speaking.
We've got Chris, we have a lot of new listeners tonight, and all of them are artists. All of them are drawing with us. And I'm going to ask you just for a brief moment. I want to tell everybody, first of all, how special it is to have you here for your skill. And just for anybody who is new to the work, I know that you've all seen Chris's work before, but to kind of get to meet the photographer, I think is really special. And so if you're not familiar, Chris is he's the GOAT when it comes to portrait photography. He's based out of New York, and he's known for his distinctive style, conceptual, irreverent, smart, and intimate. His portraits have won placements in the prestigious annual American Photography over 40 times. And he was the first recipient of the Arnold Newman Portrait Prize. And this is where it gets hard for me because you've photographed the likes of Seth Rogen, Steve Carell, Leonard Cohen, Bjork, Martin Short, Tom Hanks, and President Obama, which any name that comes before or after President Obama sounds ridiculous. It's just amazing, the career that you've had, and it means a great deal to us that you're here. So thank you.
Well, I have a lot of respect for what you guys do, so I'm really honored that you're featuring me tonight. It's super cool.
Thank you. It's so fun to be although I think I'm making Nick Offerman look a lot more uncomfortable than Nick Offerman normally looks.
You know, he kind of I think he's very happy in that space of being uncomfortable. So I think you're good.
Oh, that's good. But no, this is fun to draw from. And
When I did that shoot with him, I'd actually photographed him about the previous year, and the first time was in New York, and the second time was in Los Angeles, where he has a wood shop. And I sent my assistants ahead to go start setting up at the wood shop, and I was just kind of scaring the neighborhood. And so I was just kind of walking like on the street, like kind of at a corner behind where his space was, and his car pulls up, and it's Nick. And he rolls his window down. And he's like, "Hey," I'm like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "I'm going to get some breakfast." So I'm like, "Oh, we brought some bagels and we brought, some pastries." He's like, "I'm going to get meat." That's all he said, and then he drove off.
awesome.
I'm just picturing him coming home with like pounds of bacon and things like that.
Well, it's funny because like these actors always try to make it like they're not like their on-screen characters, but I think there's a lot of Ron Swanson and Nick Offerman.
That makes me so happy to hear. Thank you for joining, by the way. So
Of
excited
course.
that you're here
Good to
tonight.
be here.
I can totally believe that he has a wood shop.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost a cliche, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I saw pictures of the canoe he built.
Right. Yep.
So Chris,
So,
this is
so what questions you guys have for me? I'd love to field any questions you might have.
I gotta hear what Matthew. I just want to hear if you could ask Chris a question. If you have anything in the chamber.
Yeah, Chris, what artwork do you have? Hey, Matt Salacuse here. What artwork do you have on your walls? Because I have your artwork on my walls.
Oh, well, thank you. I have a mix of different things. It's all kind of things related to my work, but not, I don't really hang my own work so much. Let's see, I can show you here. I'll show you a few things. There on the, I guess it's the right. That's a portrait of Martin Scorsese by David Barry,
Oh,
who's one
cool.
of my photo heroes. And then next to it is, it's a homeless shelter in Los Angeles made from one of my billboard ads. So they literally took down a billboard and made a homeless shelter out of it. And my client shot that photo and then gave it to me and I printed it out.
Wow.
Oh,
that's
wow.
amazing.
That's so cool.
And then there's my my father's diploma from as a chemical engineer. He actually worked at Kodak. And then beside that is a Life magazine cover of Montgomery Clift, one of my my actor heroes from 1948. So that's at least a sampling of what I got. It's and there's some photographs too, but it's mostly, yeah, it's a mix of stuff, things that inspire me.
One of the questions that we'd gotten from a student was your work ranges from capturing like kind of hidden moments, or not hidden moments, but like the essence of a person and really capturing a moment, to highly conceptualized photos. What are you drawn to more in regards to that?
Well, I think the conceptual part stems from trying to make a picture that has meaning of someone, that oftentimes I'm using a prop or a location or costume to help suggest a narrative. So, you know, you're kind of giving me the two ends of the spectrum, the kind of straighter portrait is more subtle, and then like a very conceptual picture. But I think in a way, my best pictures are kind of somewhere in the middle there, where, you know, like the Nick Offerman one, where it's him kind of dressed in Elizabethan style, but it's still Nick Offerman, you know? So I think that that was actually shot for a cover of Chicago magazine, and it was for their arts issue. And it was actually their idea. They said, what if we dressed up Nick Offerman in a kind of, you know, like an old master painting? And so they gave me that general idea, and then I pulled together the costume to do it. And, you know, one of the things I think it really works about it is how simple it is. It's really just, he's just wearing like a, you know, like a black kind of coat with the traditional collar shot against the red background. And we just kept it really simple. And that, with his sort of judgmental stare, just kind of gives you everything you need.
Yeah.
You find that that's the case often? I'm sorry, you find like the simpler the better?
Well, what I find is that I did a book, which I'll show you. I did a book that came out about 5 years ago. And in doing the book, you know, I have here like over 300 of my portraits. And in doing them, what I realize is often I do these kind of conceptual pictures with props, and then I kind of either pull the props out or just do less. Like there's Steve Carell. I just kind of do less stuff, and I kind of almost instinctually pull stuff out, and then be kind of left with something that's still a little surprising and odd, but is
Right.
kind of more, some of the more overt narrative aspects are stripped out. And I think it does two things. One, it simplifies the image, which I think ends up being more pleasing, but also it makes the narrative more open-ended, and therefore there's space for the viewer to have imagination and to kind of expand in the image.
Right, so you're not hitting them over the head with it.
Yeah, I mean, I really, as much as a lot of my pictures are conceptual, I don't love it when the concept or the idea is super clear and it's like, this is about X. And I like it more like it suggests something, but it's not really, it's not a super on the nose idea.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the sweet spot when it comes to paintings too, you know, or drawings, especially illustration, you know, like if it doesn't hit it, you know, it comes close to nailing it.
Well, it's funny, when you watch like YouTube videos about master paintings, and they'll kind of do this whole like breakdown based on the history of art and the culture and that moment, and they're analyzing why the painter chose to include certain like props or background figures or whatever. I always watch those and I think, this is largely bullshit. Like,
I totally agree with
Oh,
you.
absolutely.
Wholeheartedly agree with you. I think so much of like the story behind it is made up.
because it's not like a master painter like, I don't know, like Botticelli is gonna like have super literal references in everything in the painting. Like some of them are obviously meant to be a little more open-ended or poetic, and I get that a lot of them are religious, but even the religious ones, I think, often lay into the mystery aspect of the Trinity or of the Pieta or whatever the painting might be about.
Mhm. Yeah, well, and some of it's like, hey, we need you to do this painting of the Virgin Mary. Please include this rose. It's our family crest, and we need to
Right.
have like this landscape in the background. So it is a
Right.
commissioned piece that they're
Right.
just,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with you.
Chris, I've spent a lot of time on your website this past week, and one of my favorite parts of your work that you have on the site is, one, your blog is so great. I really recommend everybody checking out the blog. I'll give a link to it. But the series that you have a selection photo series that you've shared. One is like Gentlemen's Club, which is the photo sessions with partners of exotic dancers.
Yep.
Chris, one of my favorites was the Chris Bucks, which was people named Chris Buck, right?
Yeah. I traveled the world. I shot in England and in Canada and obviously the US. Just like finding as many Chris Bucks as I could. I shot a couple who were a married couple who are both named Chris Buck.
What?
I shot the Chris Buck Band, who are a country reggae band out of Vancouver, Canada. I photographed the famous animated film director, Chris Buck, who directed Frozen.
No way.
That's wild. Yeah.
So I just say, hey, Chris, the director, is a lovely guy, but I don't appreciate a more famous Chris Buck than myself. I'm not really cool with that.
Absolutely.
I was going to ask, do you have an alternative favorite Chris Buck?
Well, obviously I like the ones where the pictures are best. I mean, I will say, like, a number of the Chris Bucks I'm still friends with, and if I'm in their town, like, we'll meet up and have dinner. So, there is a genuine kinship among the Chris Bucks for sure.
The Chris Buck community. That's amazing. Well, you're our favorite Chris Buck.
Well, I appreciate it, but maybe I can hook you up with the director and he could show you how to draw like Olaf.
Oh my gosh, that'd be cool.
Well, and then the other one was isn't, right? And
Yeah.
isn't was likeness is people who look like famous.
No, likeness actually is the figurine.
Oh, likeness was the figurine.
Yeah, they're like the
Yeah.
three-dimensional photograph, and then isn't is the lookalikes.
Right. It was like a portrait of Michael Jackson in the desert, right? But it's not it isn't Michael Jackson.
Well, it's funny because I have to very carefully caption those for like, legal reasons.
Oh, I
I'm
can
not
only
going to be
imagine.
pretending that this is Bill Gates taking a bath. Like I have to be very careful not to misrepresent that.
It was so funny because John sent me the Michael Jackson one. And I said, hey, I don't think everybody would, I think, we've got a big audience and we're being sensitive. I don't know that everybody wants to draw Michael Jackson, maybe. And he goes, it isn't Michael Jackson. And I was like, okay, touche.
Yeah, well, there you go. That solves the whole problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I love about these ideas for these shoots that you've had, the premise of them, they're so simple, but they're so just brilliant, in my opinion. When you come up with an idea like that, how do you know it's going to stick? Do you commit to it and just start to execute? And
Well, definitely, part of it is that, I often will start things and they won't work. Like I'll do 2 or 3 of them, and either the images are too similar, or sourcing to people is too difficult, or I just lose interest. I did one about they'd have this thing in like the classifieds called misconnections, where people kind of have some liaison or some kind of crossing of signals and they want to reconnect again. And I thought it'd be fun to photograph people at the places where their misconnections happened. And I did like a couple of them, and then I was doing research or something, and my intern showed me, oh, someone's already done this, and they did it pretty well too. So I just had to drop the project. So a lot of my projects I start and I don't finish. So whenever I'm going to embark on a new big series, I've kind of learned to do I kind of try to start 3 at once, because there's a good chance that the one I'm really excited about is not going to happen. It's just going to fail. So, I do a lot of stuff that doesn't really work out. And oftentimes like the best image from the series ends up on my website somewhere. But that's fine. I mean, I think, as a creative person, a lot of it is about, trying things out and being okay with things failing, but also with, you kind of recognize after a while, it is a bit of a numbers game, that you have to do a lot of work. And I think about my favorite musicians and how often my favorite bands are ones who made work for like 20 years. And, like most of their music is pretty terrible, but because they kept at it, there's enough songs that I can get excited about that they're worth listening to, and they're really important. So I think that part of it is just numbers, like it's just trying stuff and seeing if it works. I mean, a big part of that stuff too is that because I had to make that kind of series work as promotion to get more jobs, and the more I did it, the better I got at it. The more I got a sense of what might suit my style, what might be doable. I'll tell you another thing too. My first book I did was Presence, the one that's the portraits of famous people where they're not visible. And I did that book, and it went great, and I got great press, and it sold well, but it led to no assignments. And in a way, the Gentleman's Club book was a direct response to that. Because Presence didn't really get me work, I was like, I'm going to stop using criteria of promotion for doing a new project. And so I decided to try to do a project that would actually lose me work. And that's how I ended up with Gentleman's Club, because most of my clients are young women, and the idea of like seeing a bunch of strippers' boyfriends is like not appealing to them. So, and also people in advertising tend to be controversy averse. And so the idea of doing something that's even vaguely provocative, like something in the strip club world, is not really something people in the commercial world are really that excited about. In fact, my agent at the time essentially kicked me out of their roster because they were not happy about me doing that book.
Really?
So what's the upside of that? Like doing
the upside is, on my deathbed, I'm not going to be wishing I did like one more ad for like a detergent. I'm going to be thinking about work that matters to me. I think that's part of it. I think also that like there was something about removing that filter of, will this work as promotion? It opened up a lot of doors of what I could do, and made me realize how much of my creative verve or whatever I was sort of shutting out unconsciously before I even got to, the good stuff.
Right. I think that it's really interesting. I think there's 2 really valuable points you made, is that one, you try stuff and it fails and you don't give up. You just keep going, or you work on something else, because so many people, myself included, you try something and it's devastating when it doesn't work out, or the worst thing is, you lose interest in it, and you've got this started thing and you're like, I don't know what to do with this thing. I'm never going to show it to anybody, and the second point is that taking the idea that this is going to lead to something out of the equation, because that can be really kind of a bottomless pit thinking, that this is going to go somewhere. Because a lot of times things don't go anywhere.
Yes. And in fact, one of my mottos, and I tell this to young shooters all the time, is never start a big personal project that you wouldn't be happy with, even if it fails.
Right.
That, because, Gentleman's Club, that book, I worked on it I shot it for 6 years and then published it like a year and a half later. And then a time where I was sort of mulling it over. And so it was really like an 8-year timeline that I worked on it. And it wasn't all I did, but it was a big commitment. And, I remember at some point, because the book has interviews as well, and I was talking to my editor of the interviews, and she said, what if this book is not only not successful, but also basically collapses your commercial career? Will you wish you hadn't done it? And I was like, no, I'll still want to have done it. Yeah, definitely. And I think that you have to have that kind of attitude to these kind of projects. Otherwise, you just go in with too much doubt, and it's just too hard. Like, that project was so difficult because time and time again, we just hit a wall where subjects were just impossible to find because, most of the dancers don't want to be in some book with their picture or their boyfriend or husband or girlfriend. They don't want to be in a book. Like, they're trying to keep that life private. And so getting, in the end, I had 40 partners or couples. It took me, 6 years to get to that. And I was constantly having to be creative about new ways to meet subjects and approach them.
Did you self-publish that?
Yes. So both my second and third book were self-published, which, I'm not sure that'd be that interesting for your audience, but I largely did it because the traditional publishing houses expect you to essentially pay for the publishing to do your book. So if I was going to pay for it, then I wanted to control it and I wanted to own the title. And the fact is that my first book I did with a traditional publisher, and I hired my own publicist. I arranged all my own events. I sold a lot of the books myself. A lot of the press came through my contacts I had in magazines. So the fact is that I did like most of the work anyways, and just gave away my title.
Right.
I mean, when you have a good book, no one's looking at the spine and saying, who is this publisher? Like, this isn't legit,
Right.
I was doing a book of hundreds of celebrities and a few of the pictures are pretty good. And so I figured, you know what? No one's going to care who published it. If it's beautifully printed and the pictures are good, no one's even going to look.
Right.
Well, it's also exciting to hear you talk about it and just be so passionate and excited about your subject matter. And I think that's what fuels you for like a real life doing what you're doing. If you are always kind of sacrificing for the sake of like, oh, this will have me be seen, that would be very a perfect setup for burnout.
Totally. And I think, another one of the things I kind of try to remind myself is my goal is to be great, not popular. And obviously the ideal is both, but the fact is oftentimes you're making decisions that go against what is popular in the marketplace or in social media. And you have to choose your long-term goals and why are you making art? Are you making an art to get likes? Are you making art to get more followers? Or are you making it for some other reason? And I think that when you focus on the reasons that why you're really doing it and striving to be truly great at something, I think that you end up in more interesting places than if you are trying to have your ear to the ground as to where where the popular interest is.
Yeah.
Matthew Renan's like one of my favorite tweets that he just sent out was, my biggest concern about comedians trying to play the social media algorithms to get likes is that it's not working for me.
So true.
Yeah. That is a really interesting thing because we're designed to like want to be liked more, especially right now. Like you were saying, there's an actual there's a math to it now about how much you are liked, right?
Yeah. And when you see like I have comedian friends too, and sometimes they'll do a joke and it will totally blow up. And I'll be like, that's not even their best joke. Like, why is that the one that got a million views. And it makes you, it makes you worried that like, are we creating like bad incentives for people?
Yeah. And I that's really fascinating. I know both of you work with you both have worked with the funniest people alive, like the trained ninjas of comedy, I would say. How do you even keep up with that? Do you try to keep up with it when you're on set shooting with them? Like, because I'm imagining you want them to feel like you're, I don't know, do you just not, I would feel this pressure to be like, I've got to make Sam Morril laugh, or like play the part, be buddies with them for that moment to capture a unique moment. How do you
Take it away,
handle
Matt. What do you think?
Well, the truth is closer to the fact that they love to perform, and to perform, you need an audience. So sometimes it's just good enough to be the audience and like give them, a laugh or a smile or something, some feedback.
Yeah.
Even when you're shooting, you don't have to have the line.
Uh-huh.
It's nice to have the line, but my friend described it. I just shot Guy Fieri, and we had a line at the very beginning. He and I both shared a line, and my friend was like, "Oh, that was like it was like your pickup line." It's like, if you're a great pickup line, it's going to go further, and the shoot just went much further because of it.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. I mean, it is amazing. Like, I remember I photographed Louis C.K. and we did a phone call beforehand talking about like ideas and stuff. And he laughed at something I said. I'm like, wow, Louis C.K. is laughing at my joke. Like, that's pretty amazing. But I think that these people are in comedy for a reason, because they enjoy comedy, and they're usually like happy to go there with you. It's more, occasionally there will be people who are, maybe don't like being photographed, and so they're edgy, but usually people are pretty game. And, if you say something funny, they're happy to laugh. I don't know, like in a way, they'd probably rather have, well, it depends on where they are in their career. Like when you photograph someone who's a real veteran, like Steve Martin, he does not want to have to perform for you. But if you say something funny, he's happy to have a good time. I think that's kind of how it kind of goes. But I think that, whenever you're dealing with someone super famous or successful, you kind of enter gingerly, and you try to be authentic and not too intense, and just be kind of real, and then focus on why you're there. Like, I remember I photographed Dennis Hopper very early in my career, and I remember thinking about afterwards, like, if I met him at a cocktail party or like at a dinner party at someone's house, it would have been way more awkward. But the fact that I had a job to do, and I could say, I want you to sit here, and I want you to, maybe look at me like this, or, I could talk to him about work. I could talk to him about something we were going to collaborate on, and not about, what are you doing while you're in town? Or, how'd you get here? How was parking? Like, I don't have to make small talk, because I can talk about the work.
Right. You're also both there for a reason, right?
Yes, and
Everybody
that's
knows
huge.
why you're there.
I mean, it is weird I'm going to Comic-Con with my daughter next month, and a couple of people who are like appearing there, I photographed, and I'm like, I really hope my daughter doesn't want to like wait in line to get like Michael J. Fox's autograph, because I photographed him twice. I've spent a couple hours with him. Like, he's super cool, but I don't want to stand in line for like an hour and a half just to say hi to him. Like,
Like, hey, do you remember me? And
I mean, I'm sure he would.
right.
A couple times. Actually, Michael J. Fox wrote me a letter for my green card. So I, he's a good dude.
That is a wild flex.
It really is. Marty McFly wrote you a nice letter. for your
Exactly.
green
Well,
card.
he's Canadian as well, so kind of like, ideas like that.
Who said no to get down to Michael J. Fox? Who was like, that's amazing. That's incredible. Wow, that's really genuinely nice. That's Michael J. Fox.
It was
Wow.
very. It's funny when I photographed him the second time, I had a chance to thank him properly, and I was like, it's a kind of way to remind him we'd met, and I said, look, you helped me with this, and it went through, and it was really fantastic. And his response was, well, let me know when you're going up for your citizenship, and I'll get you another one.
That's great. Everybody, we are moving on to the next post. I dropped all the info for the link in the chat. Please definitely tag Chris in this. We want to be able to see his work. It's awesome. I love it. Yeah, I'm already seeing some of the artwork come through. So this is going to be a good one. I know you had mentioned, Chris, and you helped us kind of pick out the images and select images that weren't just for photography, but that we thought would be great for drawing. And I thought it was really interesting, first of all, that drawing was a passion of yours when you were younger. But your insights into that, I just thought were really, really interesting about like what you were looking for in some of the photos you chose.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, really like art was one of the only things I was good at. In fact, it was the only thing I was good at as a kid. And you know, when you're in grade 2 or 3, 4, you begin to kind of see maybe something you're good at that other kids aren't as much so. And visual arts were the thing I had an aptitude for that not all the kids did. And so it's something I really developed. And you know, by high school, I was doing a lot of drawing, and I was obsessed with music and movies. So I would draw my favorite personalities. You know, I remember drawing like John Lennon and Jim Morrison, David Bowie, Marlon Brando, like actually at different ages even. And it was one of the things where you kind of get a sense of where you can, like what photograph is going to translate well in a drawing. And it wasn't just aesthetic. It wasn't just, oh, what are nice tones, or, you know, what's an image I like, but what is going to like fit my skill set? Because, you know, everyone has their strengths and their challenges, and there's certain kinds of lighting I really had a hard time drawing. And so I would choose things that had a certain kind of layering of tones, often black and white images, because if I was doing a black and white drawing, it was easier to translate. I often found like hair was really like a thing. Like when I did the drawing of Jim Morrison, it was the cover of the Doors' Greatest Hits album, which came out in, I guess, the early 80s. And it was this beautiful picture of Jim Morrison kind of turned to camera, but he had this, you know, long, crazy hair that was super hard to draw, because it was kind of going everywhere, but it was beautiful, but it was like kind of chaotic too. And I remember that being like, when I see the drawing now, my brother now has the drawing, and I see it, he hangs it in his office. And when I see it, I'm always like, oh yeah, damn, I never could get the hair right. But
Killer giving those pieces to family.
Yeah.
When I got into photography, it really felt like, oh, now I'm actually now I can do the photographs that people might draw from. Like that was like my goal. Like if I can make some photographs that people deem worthy of drawing or painting from, then I'll have made it. That'll be a true marker.
Chris, I'm so glad that we could make your career.
This is it. This is like I'm going to retire after tonight. Yeah, I'm so glad that we can be the cherry on top of your career.
I don't know if we want to end Chris's career. Officially.
Well, the drawings will be so good, like they'll just be commissioning you guys to do illustrations for their publications.
That's the plan, really. That's,
yeah.
When did you start? I'm just curious. Like,
so I got to shooting full time in October of 1988. So 34 years ago. I started in Toronto, where I grew up, and I moved to New York 2 years later. I was shooting in college. I did study photography, but my full-time career began in 1988. Then initially I was shooting a lot of music, and then kind of quickly moved into areas like politics and business and film people, and kind of made that transition very quickly. But I really started in music because that's where my passion was.
Were you doing music? Did you get into doing music videos at all in those days, or were you?
I did direct a music video like in, I guess, the late 90s. I don't know, like I'm not necessarily a big fan of music videos. I tend to find they kind of ruin songs.
Well,
But,
yeah.
But maybe I'm actually thinking of maybe going back into it. I just part of the problem is that being a real music fan, I'm pretty snobby about what I like. So could be hard to find a band whose music I like well enough to like put that much effort into it. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean,
I did watch the spot that you directed Oswald for Wired, and I was howling laughing. I thought that was so brilliant. I loved it.
He really is. He made that up off the cuff. He
Really?
just said, just let me know when the sound's running and I'll just talk. And
Yeah.
it was insane. Like
Really?
he had written I think he'd written an article about that theme, that idea of the kind of the collapsing in a popular culture. But still,
Yeah.
like the references he made, the rhythm he created, the little narrative that he created, it was insane. It was a really great project.
Yeah, I'm going to be dropping a link to all of this stuff in the chat after tonight. But I really, if anybody's looking for a good laugh, it's a really great, it's a brilliant commentary, but it's also hilarious. I loved it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Beautiful. Raymond, what you're doing is amazing. I loved that.
yeah, I was looking, checking out what both Raymond and Cassandra were doing. They're great. Raymond's really being true to his word and like sticking to one thing where
For
You know.
John, because John's not here.
for John, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the beautiful Gillian Anderson thinking, do I really want to tackle this image? Because it would be so easy to not make it good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Matthew's heard us say this before, Chris, but when we're drawing from such incredible work, we're more worried about making the work look bad by
Yeah.
making bad art from it.
Well, the
Based off
challenge
art.
with the Gillian Anderson, as opposed to every other thing we really talked about seriously, is that because it's symmetrical, it's really right on symmetrical. So
totally agree with
if you're off, it looks real weird.
Mhm.
You really need to nail it. And obviously she's so gorgeous that if you're off, people just will see it in a second.
I don't need any more pressure,
I can talk more about how the picture is made if you'd like.
Yeah.
So,
No, I know that's the thing, like, especially with somebody who's like straight on, like if you mess it up,
yeah.
Then, but
What's one of the real challenges with portraits is that we, as human beings, one of the things we're very, very best at is faces, because we need to for our own survival, right? Like it comes from tribal culture, going back to our ancestry, that if you can't read, like, is this someone from my group or it isn't? Is this family? Is it not? If you can't read someone and can't recognize a face, then that could mean, you could die. Like,
right.
so,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
so doing any kind of illustrative work of a face is one of the reasons why when people get like plastic surgery done and it's kind of a little off, it's very disconcerting to the audience.
Like Uncanny Valley.
Mhm.
Do you
Yeah.
know Uncanny Valley?
Speak on it.
So it's that term when they were starting to render animation more 3D, but they couldn't make the eyes look lifelike.
Mm.
So they looked like robots, but it's very realistic, but they hadn't figured out how to create the life in the eyes.
Hmm.
So sometimes that's how I think about plastic surgery that makes their features kind of off. It's Uncanny Valley. They don't quite look right anymore.
Yeah. No, and it's bizarre, especially when it's a well-known actor.
Mhm.
And then they get work done that makes them look better, but not like themselves. And,
Right.
their look is part of their brand. So they might look younger and they might even look more attractive, but they look like a different person. I mean,
Just last week.
Don't get me
oh,
wrong,
sorry.
like I feel for them. I think it's very challenging, for actors who, in a way, often roles are just within a certain window of, most of the plum roles are within certain ages. So,
Mhm.
You get to be a certain age and I don't know, you used to take five years off and then come back as like a grandparent or something.
Right. Well, I think especially for female act, female actors. It's,
What were you gonna say, Matthew?
Oh, I was just gonna tag her story because last week someone explained that a comedian that I know, they described him as an uncanny valley comedian, and I was like, what does that mean? He was like, well, he does everything right, but something's off. He's like, he hits all the right aspects of what it's supposed to be like a comedian, but the soul isn't there. So I had to look that up just last week, so it's funny.
That's so interesting. That's I can imagine that there's a lot of that where you're like, on paper it's brilliant, but or it's good, but it's it doesn't.
Well, it happens so much in art too. Like you are like, if you paint something realistically, like I was struggling with Nick here because I ended up making his eyes too big. So it looks like Nick Offerman, but his eyes are too big and they're a little too far apart. And I was fighting it the whole time. So you can tell what I was trying to do, but the faults come out even more because I was off by those things. So it's like, it's, you struggle with that in paintings too all the time. So I feel like, as an artist, you hit that too. The more you push realism, the more you fight that.
I was working on a painting of a sky earlier, Cassandra, and I was smoothing it out to try to make it actually look like the sky. And I looked at it, and then I spent like 10 minutes wiping away the previous hour's worth of work because I totally sanitized this thing. And I realized, all the paintings that I like all have kind of a pentimento to them, like they have this history of the mistakes in them. And so I spent time wiping away all this work. It doesn't look like a sky, but it looks more right to me, and
it's about feeling, right? I mean, that's one thing I was gonna ask Matthew and Chris about was, like you could take a picture of Nick Offerman, but it won't necessarily look like Nick Offerman. And it's like how difficult is that, for you usually, or is it like a sliding scale based off of depending on who you're photographing?
You're muted, Chris. Sorry.
The only time I find that a problem is when I photograph someone who's very beautiful, like a beautiful man like Johnny Depp or George Clooney. If you're not capturing their beauty, then you've missed. You need that George Clooney-ness, otherwise people aren't going to like the picture. There's just, that's so much of what he brings to the table. If you're not capturing his beauty, then people aren't, they might like the image for other reasons, but it's not going to be a George Clooney picture. And so it's going to be unsatisfying. That's the only time I really find that a problem. What do you think, Matt?
I've never really had that problem. Like, I feel like I'm such a straightforward photographer. People end up looking kind of what they look like when they walked in. And I wasn't a big fan of retouching when it was sort of in vogue. Like when real digital retouching came to like in its full strength, I was like, I don't like this. And I lost jobs because of it. They're like, you're not making so-and-so look beautiful. I was like, this is what they look like. And the rep was like, I can't rep you because you don't make people look beautiful. I was like, that's them. It's on them.
So how did you fight that? Because I do remember that era, and I don't know, like it's certainly in the celebrity world, it's a different thing, but even in advertising, it's a problem too, because they want everything, they want every detail to be, super perfect or whatever, or cleaned up. But how in your own mind, how did you get past that?
I just wrote it out. I still do very, very little retouching.
But like, why did you not question whether you were wrong?
I guess so. I didn't think I was wrong though. I was like, this is who they are. I'm not going to present a false version of who they are. My friend photographed a famous woman. Her name rhymes with Farley Sparrow. And the retouching notes from her people were make her look 14.
Oh
my God.
That was from her people.
That's wild. Ugh.
And see, but that's also an age bias too, you know, which is a really, really hard thing to fight, at least in this country.
Yeah.
You know,
And this is one of the most beautiful women in the world.
My gosh, yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. And I guess when you build your career, like when you're at that point, you're stuck, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting.
this totally does not look like.
So can I ask Chris a question?
Yeah. Please.
But you only
Take
get
it,
one
no.
question, Matthew. You only get one.
Matthew, take the stage, man.
So Chris, you have such a signature style, meaning like when you see a Chris Buck photograph, you know it's a Chris Buck photograph. At least I did when I was coming up, and you maintain that through your whole career, which I think is admirable. When you go into a situation and you're photographing someone and you want to make a Chris Buck photograph out of them, how much of them is left there in the photograph? Like how much of it is you and how much of it is them?
Well, yeah, well, I don't really, I think basically I try to allow it to be as much me as possible. I think the more me it is, the better it's going to be. Which is, I know sounds very arrogant. I guess it is kind of arrogant, but it's more that if it's about me, then I have license to go where I want with it because it's about me and how I feel and my struggles and my curiosity or whatever it is about me I'm putting in the picture. So it gives me license to go as far as I want and to go whatever, whether it's subtle or it's dynamic, I can do what I want because I feel, because in my mind, it's about me. But I do think in the best pictures, there ends up being kind of at least enough of them to make the picture kind of grounded and authentic. I mean, it's interesting, like one of my best known pictures is the Chris Farley portrait. And when I made it, I really thought it was all about me. Like, in fact, I didn't show it initially because it seemed so pretentious that I was doing this sort of very kind of sort of sullen and kind of artsy picture of him.
Pagliacci.
Sorry?
Pagliacci.
What's Pagliacci?
Oh, the sad clown.
The clown.
Oh yeah, and yeah, well, I was thinking more like King Lear, like with the crown, the paper crown, and the kind of in the t-shirt, and the kind of like a kind of broken man, but he's like a broken king or something, And so when I did that, I didn't show it until after he passed away, and I read about his final years and months and how much he struggled. And only then did I know that the picture really reflected his story really, really well, and managed to be really poetic too. So I don't know, like I think that was one of those times where it was a big lesson in, like, rather than censoring myself, but actually to lean more into it. Like the more I make it about me, the better the picture will be. And I think that over time, I've gotten more comfortable being collaborative with people. And so rather than kind of forcing them to do what I want, I think I'm more kind of gently kind of invite them on my journey, and we kind of meet somewhere in the middle. Does that make sense? I definitely think of I do think of what I do as being very aggressive. Like, I think there's a big mental block. I think just thinking about making someone's portrait it's a very strange and kind of paradoxical situation, because you're sitting there and they're in front of you, the person that you're making a portrait of. And so it's this very intense relationship you have with this person where you're trying to make something special and unique and very intimate. And at least my viewpoint is, I'm going to do all the song and dance I can to get you to do what I think will be interesting, and hopefully we'll collaborate on something magical. And then I'm going to turn around and choose what I think is the best frame, totally ignoring your interests or wishes. And there's something about that arrangement that's kind of like sociopathic. And so if you read about the great portrait photographers, I'd say at least half of them will talk about this sort of sociopathic kind of instinct you have to have that is manipulative and kind of like, you're super warm and engaged with this person in the room, and then you turn around and do the edit that is totally cold and separate from whatever warmth you might have had in that room with them. I mean, I don't know, is that your experience, Matt?
Yeah, pretty much. That's the smarter way to say what I was going to say. It is a manipulation, and when people say something like, "Oh, you really captured his or her essence," it's like, it's impossible. It's like you're really capturing how you feel about the person. Actually, I had a shoot on. Chris and I have different philosophies on how to deal with the subject. I get super like overly conscious of the person's time, and I'm like, after like 2 minutes of shooting something, if I see that look in their eye where they're like sort of checking out or bored for a second, I'm like, let's do something else. That's why I get like 5 or 10 different, I juggle people doing different things in one shoot. I get like 10 different looks. Chris has an attitude where he says, you shoot until the other person's embarrassed.
Or they just say like, we're done.
Yeah.
What is that? Oh, wow.
But then how do you know you're reading them correctly when you see that look in their eye of like, I'm over this? Maybe they're just like thinking about, did their kid take their lunch to school?
True. But like when someone's on set and there's the back and forth connection, the shooting, and subtle movements and stuff, you can see when the person is done.
True.
All
Yeah, but sometimes they're done, but you're not. And I think that's when you have to then you have to reframe it and say, there's something really lovely going on here, and just kind of hold with me. I think we can go deeper and make it even better.
Oh
And
man, I wish you're on all my shoots.
Well, I mean, I think that if you can communicate that, then I don't know. I mean, look, I do a lot of setups too. I usually aim for like 7 to 9, and maybe I'll end up doing 6.
Yeah.
But I'll do similar, like where some setups I'll do an hour on, and other setups I'll do 5 minutes. And sometimes a 5-minute one is the best shot.
Yeah.
So I definitely do variety as well, just because I when photographers will say, I was looking to the camera and I knew that was the shot. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't happen to me.
So there's something called in photography called the decisive moment, and Henry Cartier-Bresson sort of made it up. He was saying like when you click the shutter, it's like, oh, you got it. And he was the king of having these decisive moments. Like if you look up his work, he's Life magazine photographer from the 50s, just brilliant. But someone was like, this is bullshit. The decisive moment is when you pick the photograph off the contact sheet. That's the decisive moment.
Yeah. I remember when I was in college, they must have released some special version of Robert Frank's The Americans, where they showed a bunch of his contact sheets. And one of my peers at school was like, just so crushed that Robert Frank shot more than one frame of each of these setups. And it's like, he's a man who walks the earth. Like, he's not a deity, like, and it's sort of funny because, when people ask me for tips on photography, one of the things I say is shoot lots of frames, like volume actually does help,
Yeah. So on Monday, this last Monday, not today, one before us, I walked off my first set ever. I've been shooting for 25 years. I was shooting this young rapper in LA, and had a studio 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he showed up and at like 4:30, which is fine. So I started taking his picture. I was like, and now we're gonna go outside for the sunset shots. It's beautiful, LA street scenes. And he was like, I don't take pictures in the daylight. I was like, I don't even know what to do with that information. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't do daylight. I was like, well, my plane leaves at 10 o'clock. I gotta be at the airport at 8:30. We're gonna have this much, non-daylight hours to work together. He was like, I'm gonna buy you a new ticket. I'm gonna get you a hotel room for the night. He goes, just stay the night. I was like, okay. He talked me into it. So I meet him at like 8 o'clock, at his studio. I was like, let's go outside. He's like, no, just do it in the studio.
Gosh.
And I was like, if you don't go outside, I have to leave. I have to try and get the red eye home. And he was like, so I just left.
So what was
Wow.
his logic?
I don't know. I don't know what he was young. He's like 19. Like he even said, he was like, my friend took pictures of me. You can just put your name on those. He said that to me.
Oh my gosh.
Was it for a publication?
Yeah, for a major magazine.
And what are you going to say to them?
Well, I did get some stuff in the studio at 3 p.m. and I photographed him smoking a joint in the parking lot, which are really good.
Yeah, that's great.
I knew I had enough.
Right.
But I was going for the extra thing, and I thought like if I put the pressure on, like, you know, I'm gonna walk, that he would do it. And he didn't.
I was hoping you were just going to be like, I submitted his friend's photos.
So is he good?
Not good enough for that attitude.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I told him, I was like, oh, I did one of Jay-Z's first photo sessions, and he was like, he's corny. I was like, all right, we're done here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But like to
Well,
a 19-year-old, that'd be like, you know, if the Sex Pistols were like,
Yeah,
if you
but
took Sex Pistols,
but
I
you-
photographed the Grateful Dead. They would tell me to go screw.
right, but that's you gotta respect the arrogance.
Okay. He didn't buy my ticket, by the way.
Did you? But you caught a red eye back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a lot of amazing stories. I mean,
No
you've got the
pictures.
crazy stories.
No,
Oh my
no photos,
gosh.
though.
Yeah.
Well, the photos are good too.
Okay.
Man, I'm just like cycling through all the 19-year-old rappers that I know about right now. I'm like, was it Lil Pump? Was it Lil Pump?
Atlanta. I'm not saying anymore.
Okay, all right. Oh man, this has been such a treat. It's incredible, you know, hearing these stories, because it gives, I think, as artists, as picture makers on paper, it's just really interesting to hear your guys' experience where you're having to capture an image in an entirely different way. Chris, I had read, I believe it was an article, I think it was an interview with you. You had talked about what makes a photo interesting is often not what the subject wants. I think that it was, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what exactly you're referring to. I mean, I do think that, you know, most people want a picture where they look young and thin and beautiful, and that's fine, but that's not an interesting picture.
Mm.
You know, one of the ways I had a really disastrous photo session about 5 years ago, and it was so bad. I'm actually writing a memoir about it, and it got me thinking a lot about, because the subject was so difficult and so uncooperative, it got me thinking about what is a portrait session and what are the expectations of a photographer from the subject. And the best analogy I can make for what a portrait is that it's analogous to going to a therapist or like a psychoanalyst, psychoanalysis, in that if you could kind of work out your issues by just sitting at home and looking out the window and thinking, then you would, but you can't. You need someone else to tease it out of you, to kind of help you connect the dots that you have a blind spot for. And that's what, when you get a real portrait made, that's what you're doing, is someone is taking you somewhere that you wouldn't go. If you're doing a self-portrait, you just wouldn't go to this place because it's too awkward or too telling or too brazen. You need a portraitist to gently lead you to that place where a special image can be made.
So true.
Now, do you feel that I guess like that goes down to like what Matthew was saying about, you know, having your stamp on things. Is that, you know, do you gauge that based off of like the personality and how willing the subject is, or how much of the, is it a collaborative thing, or can it be, with your subjects?
Well, it's, some are very cooperative and some are not. In a way, like some of the scariest subjects are the ones who are very cooperative. There's nothing scarier than having a subject walk in and you realize they will do anything, because you're not usually ready for anything. You're ready for a reasonable spectrum of fun and interesting and conservative and safe, depending on their level of cooperation. When someone comes in and you get the sense, like, I could have set them on fire, like they'll walk naked on the street, like all the things, all the dream ideas you want to do, the crazy things that you want to do beautiful, strange pictures with, when you realize I now have that person, and then you think, but I'm not organized for that. Like, I can't pull that off. I don't have the resources, or I didn't hire the pyro expert to set them on fire, or whatever it is you need to pull off that shot. That's actually the scariest time. But otherwise, the great thing about photography is that you only need one frame. You need one frame that really works. And you can, most of your session can just be like ordinary images, but then there's that one that stands out where they gave you that look, or something just came alive that is really like magnetic.
Everybody, I just want to let you know we're moving on to the final pose. We moved on a little bit ago, but if you missed it, you're behind. Got to catch up. Please post your work to Instagram, and definitely tag Chris. It's at _Chris_Buck, and I dropped it in the chat. So tag your photographers always. So please. Wow, this is. I'm looking at the artwork right now. It's stunning. Like on Instagram, it's really great. It's unbelievable.
Who's the girl in pink here?
So that was a series I started. I think I'll continue doing it. It's based on children in my town. I did the book about the strippers' partners, and it was so hard to find willing subjects that my reaction to that was, I want to do a project where the subjects were insanely plentiful. And I live in a suburban town in New Jersey, and there's children everywhere. And once the parents realize I'm a professional photographer and I might want to photograph their child, like 95% of them are like, please include my child in your project. So this girl is in my daughter's school. They're not really friends. They were friends at one point, but not really close anymore. And I just thought she had a fascinating look about her. And yeah, so I photographed her at home. We did 3 or 4 setups. All of them really turned out great. I mean, it's funny, like photographing kids. I do love shooting with kids, but there's always a concern about portraying them a certain way or not. But I really was like, I'm just going to go to town. Like, some of the shots look like they're from like a horror film. Like, they're so like dark and weird. And I'm just like, I am going to be unbridled and go to town. Another shot looks like she's being strangled. Like,
Wow.
I mean, this one you're working from is a little more like pretty and subtle, but I think it's a lovely picture. It's one of my favorite pictures I've done in the last couple of years. So I'm really glad you're including it.
It's a beautiful photograph, and she's got such a look about her. So I just, I was fascinated to hear more.
Someone pointed out to me later that on the chalkboard above her, it says WTF.
Yeah. Well, it's WTHF.
Well, you can poetic license. It's the days of the week.
And I got that it was days of the week. I love how that.
Yeah, it was like in their kitchen, they had like a chalkboard of their calendar, and there's like notes about feeding the cat or something on there.
We've got a Texan in the crowd that has been asking, they want to know more about the Willie photo.
Yes. Do they have any particular question about it?
They don't, but I would be curious. It's such an interesting photo to take. As far as it's amazing that it's so almost hidden, but it still captures his likeness so well.
Mhm. Like the way he's kind of hidden in the chair, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for a time I was kind of obsessed with doing pictures of people where they look like they're dead.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but yeah.
Well, I'll say it. I mean, Willie's a great guy, and I hope he lives a long time. Maybe he'll outlive me. Who knows? But it's there's something about those kind of images that are really striking. It's almost like one of those like death portraits from like the late 1800s. Where people would it was a common practice to photograph your dead loved one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Willie shoot was fascinating. So I photographed him 3 times, and this was the first time. It was for a record cover, and he did not want to be there. It was a situation where he was with a new label, and he wanted to use it was like a painting of him, like a likeness that a friend of his had done, and he wanted that as the cover. And the record company, because he was such an icon, they wanted a photograph of him. So they hired me to shoot this, and they said to me, he does not want to be there. So just heads up, go in a little gentle, because he'll be there and he'll stay the appointed time, but he doesn't want to be there. So good luck. So we started off shooting with him wearing his own clothes, just kind of being a little gentle. And then we started dressing him. We were shooting in Los Angeles. We had access to all the wardrobe costume shops you could rent from. So we rented some old, like, kind of hippie cowboy stuff from like the late 60s. Because that was kind of part of Willie's look, right? It's kind of part of what was kind of cool about him was a kind of crossover between the kind of 60s kind of roots music and country music. And so we were getting ready for that next shot. And I was probably working on the lighting with my assistant, and the stylist comes over to me and she's like, I got a real big problem. Willie won't remove his Rolex. And I look at her, I'm like, you asked Willie Nelson to remove his Rolex watch? And she's like, yeah, it doesn't match the clothing. And I'm like, oh my God, no. And I'm thinking, we've lost him. So I said to her, no. The whole point of him is the great stars, they embody the contradictions. That's why he's Willie Nelson. He can be like rough and country and totally authentically that, and also wear like, a $5,000 Rolex. Like, that is Willie Nelson. In fact, he had just come back. You guys might not remember, but he had a tax lien because he hadn't paid some taxes, and he had just paid back all the taxes and was finally in the black again. And so he really earned that Rolex. And so I just went over to him and I said, Mr. Nelson, blah, 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 blah. Of course you'll wear your watch. It's lovely. We ended up, not only do he wear the Rolex, we got a close-up of his hand with the Rolex front and center in the packaging for the album.
I love that.
It's so interesting because until you said that, especially Willie Nelson, there's like a duality to him that you don't really think about. Like, he is total country. You can go to like the Bible Belt and it's going to be like Willie Nelson country, but he's also smoked weed in like on the White House roof, right? And he's like the poster child of weed with like, it's like Willie Nelson.
He is your classic, like, he is a genuinely sophisticated person who can move through any room, and he can talk to anyone, but he'll still also always be Willie Nelson.
What an amazing person to have that, to be that.
I would imagine like what you were describing, Chris, of that moment of take off the Rolex moment, which you're risking losing the subject. But also, I would imagine that there's a lot of times where people show up to a set, maybe less experienced. I could see this happening with illustrators as well. they project maybe what they think that person should be, right? Do you ever have to think about that? Like,
Yeah, but I think like I'm happy to take people to where I think they belong, but
Mhm.
you have to do so a little gently. Like I think that you like I could photograph Willie without his Rolex, but I'd have to really, and that might be the last setup we do, or we might have to have a little conversation about like what my vision is and why that would be valuable, you know?
Matthew, have you run into that where you have an idea for a
Yeah,
subject?
I have a lot of ideas for the shoot, but what I try not to do is like have preconceived notions. Let's say it's a celebrity, about the celebrity, because the truth is I don't really know anything about you. I see stuff in media, I see you in movies or in, playing concerts. I don't really know anything about you. So to pretend like I do is doesn't ring true. And they sense that. So I go into it like I'm just meeting you, Timmy.
Yeah. And I would imagine some of the gold is probably the stuff you don't know
Oh,
sometimes.
for sure.
Yeah.
I think sometimes like I photographed a filmmaker a few years ago, and for some reason I got in my mind that I want to photograph him either naked or as close to naked as I could get him. It was just like it was just like my obsession. And I kind of thought he'd do it just based on, because I researched, this is one thing too, is I research people, and like I agree with Matt that I don't pretend to know them, but I do find the research does embolden me to ask brazen questions. So I was shooting with this filmmaker in his Brooklyn apartment, and I was like, how am I going to get him down to his underwear? Like, how am I going to do that? And, it's not like you can go in steps. Like, and so at some point I just was like, hey, are you wearing interesting underwear today? And he said, yeah, it's not bad. I'm like, let's do it. And he was like, oh, also my socks are really interesting. I'm like, well, let's leave the socks on then. So we shot him in underwear and socks. And, if the shots were amazing, the magazine loved them. And then they hired me a ton after that. So it really was like well worth it. But even though I've been doing this for over 30 years, it was really like we went for hours before I got the courage to actually verbalize that question. But once I asked it, he did it. And so that's all I really needed, right? Like I was just thinking, he's just gonna think I'm an idiot. He's just gonna kick us out. But I'm like, I gotta ask. And then once I did it and we did the shots, it was like amazing. And the pictures were beautiful too. They weren't just different and interesting, but they're gorgeous.
Can I ask who it was?
His name is Kavi Sahidi. I'll pull the picture up to show you if it'll work.
Yeah. We'll make sure you can share your screen. That is fascinating.
That is
a
great story.
A question I would have is because, I mean, first of all, the psychology of like figuring out, how, like you were saying earlier, like the manipulation game of, oh wow, that's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
So we did just in his pants first, and then we got him down to his underwear.
His socks are fantastic
Those
too.
are good socks.
And he just, I mean, I love this picture. It's so like poetic and beautiful. And his films are very personal and revealing. And so it was really like, I felt it really spoke to who he is too.
Wow. They're fantastic.
Everybody, I'm giving the 5-minute warning on the last pose. Sorry, Matthew, I didn't mean to.
Was that the New York Times? After the New York Times?
That was the Times Magazine, yeah.
So when you asked that question in your career, is that a calculated risk that you've taken that sometimes does?
Well, like Matt said, I would not go there unless I've got other good stuff first. Like, yeah. I'm not going to open with, let's photograph you in your underwear. Like, because I could just end the shoot right there, and that's the end. There's nowhere to go. You can't. It'd be very difficult to come back from something being perceived as being like insensitive or like a jerk or whatever is very hard to come back from.
Mm-hmm.
But like in a way, oftentimes I'll have a few ideas for a shoot, and all of them are a little off. And so I don't, because I always want that kind of the safe shot to open with, not just safe in terms of getting like a good shot that everyone will be happy with, but also safe as in we've done the first setup, we shot for 20 minutes, and I haven't done anything stupid to piss you off yet. Like this is the one where you just to kind of like, let's get to know each other a little bit set up. And you sometimes all the shots I want to do are all just a little weird. And so it's hard to, and especially, especially if it's gonna, if that sort of first safety shot is complicated, I don't want to use up half my time doing a shot that I know I don't really care about.
Mhm.
Chris, do you have like a get to know you setup?
Like, well, that's what I was just talking about, right?
I guess so. I mean, I have like, do you have words for that when you're doing it? Do you like try and communicate that this is not going to be used for anything?
No, I would never say that because you never know, that could be the one, right? Like they might just do something interesting, but you actually say like, this is just the warm-up shot.
Yeah.
And how do they respond to that?
Well, what I say is like, I said, this is just really a test.
But I've had times when people have been unhappy and they've claimed that the shot that was run was a test shot. So I'm just kind of sensitive about that. I don't think anyone should do anything in front of the camera that they don't want published. And so I would never say anything like I'll say things that are subjective, like you look great. Well, it's obviously my opinion, you look great, or I'll say this looks great, but I'll never say you'll like this because I don't know if you'll like it. And I won't say this is just a test, because if you relax because it's a test and then it's a great shot because you're relaxed. Okay, the shot of Gillian Anderson we did earlier, that was actually a Polaroid.
Oh, a Polaroid is what you would take before you would put it on film.
Right, it's a test, but it's a Polaroid with a negative. It's a 665, so I had a negative. It was shot as a Polaroid, and she knew it was a Polaroid. So even though she was posing, she was kind of just a little more relaxed, and it was much better than, we shot a couple of rolls of film, but none of the roll film ones were as relaxed. Everything else felt a little bit too amped up. Whereas in the Polaroid, it's just that sweet spot where she's in position, but she's just kind of, there's something just kind of very present and relaxed about it. And so
Let me ask you this, a legendary.
and that's why I'd be cautious about saying this won't be seen, or even to imply it. That's my thing. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you're very wrong.
Oh my God.
I was waiting for that. I thought that
Sorry.
was on there.
So this is a photographer that I admire, Danny Clinch. She's an amazing rock and roll photographer. And he does this thing. Well, I just heard a story. I don't know if he does a thing, but he was shooting Bob Dylan, and he was meeting him in his house. He rings the doorbell. Bob opens the door and he takes a picture as he opens the door. And he said, without saying it, he's telling him, "This is all on the record. Like every second's on the record." What do you think of that approach?
It sounds very dangerous to take Bob Dylan's picture when he opens the door, because to me, it's sort of like we were saying earlier, like it's doing the crazy thing first. It kind of, if I was that subject, I'd be kind of, I'd be flummoxed by it and be like, especially Bob Dylan, who's paranoid already. Like, I mean, how'd the shoot go? Did it work out okay? I guess he told the story. He's like, must have been good enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would think that, I do think you have to be brazen with people, but I think you have to be, you have to bide your time, right? Like I want to get that killer shot, but for me, it doesn't usually come in the first 5 minutes.
When you have photos that I think are like an homage or drawing inspiration from something from the past, do you try to get the subject on board with that, or do you not tell them? And I'm specifically thinking of the Kendrick Lamar photo.
Yeah. So the Kendrick Lamar, I did show him the original. I show it's a reference to the Mick Jagger portrait by David Bailey, and I showed it to him, not because it's not like I think Kendrick is like the Mick Jagger of our time. He's actually more the Bob Dylan of our time. So it's not like I really connected, but I just thought it was an interesting photograph. And I'm always trying to find a solve, because as much as we like to frame it like we have our styles and we're trying to get people to cooperate and become part of our oeuvre or whatever, a lot of the time you're just trying to do a solve and get a decent shot that will look dynamic. And I try to not rely on doing homages. I do have a number of iconic images of mine that are homages, which is fine, but there's a danger in kind of falling back on that and making it too much a part of your shtick,
That's cool. Really great photograph.
Oh, Cassandra, that looks amazing.
Oh, thanks. I had to make up for messing up Nick Offerman.
I'll be forwarding these all to Nick Offerman, so we'll see what he thinks.
I gotta fix it.
Well, everybody, I just want to tell you right now, we are on the end of the final pose. So please post your work, #illustration isolation, tag at Chris _Chris_Buck. And I'm going to drop that info in the chat, but we're going to give you like 2 more minutes. Matthew, Chris, at the end of the night, we're going to scroll through it. The artists always like to see the work. You're welcome to hang out. You're welcome to go. A lot of people post work, so it could be a minute, but please post your work, everybody. Chris, this has been phenomenal. This is like one of my favorite.
Oh, amazing.
I'm like right here.
Matthew,
Really hear what you're saying.
Matthew, I feel you. I was there for you.
come
I
on,
totally.
Matthew, you're so special. You're like, I mean, oh my God.
Yeah,
I
Chris
just-
is great. You're special.
All right, I'll take that.
I feel like
Look
Chris
how he comes for my night and he wants the spotlight back.
I do feel like Chris is really
I
where I'm
think
like,
we should have done drawings of Matthew. That would be good.
actually for Matthew's night, it was just 4 self-portraits, Chris.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what-
perfect.
Chris, I have a question for you. There's a beautiful piece on the wall behind you. I don't know if it's a photo or a drawing.
Yes, it's a drawing of Lou Reed that is, I'll take you closer.
That's gorgeous.
It's not my drawing. It's a drawing from my photographs, and that's why I have it up. Let's see, hold on, let's see if I can get you closer without unplugging.
Oh, that is wonderful.
Oh, cool.
Well, I'm
Thank you.
trying to get a better angle so it's not light
Yeah.
reflecting. There we go.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what it is, it's two angles on him, straight on and 3/4.
Mhm.
And then they're on top of each other. So what's funny is I saw this as an ad in a magazine, and then I was like, God, that looks familiar. And so I kind of reconnected to it and kind of like realized it was my 2 photographs of Lou Reed.
That's
And-
so
And so it
wild.
was like this one and another pose overlapping each other. So I wrote to the designer and they sent me a poster, which like this show was from like 2003 or something. So I didn't hang it for a long time.
What's your response when you see something like that? You see something that you photographed, used, and no one has asked you.
I mean, my first thing is I wonder if there's any money there for me. I mean, if it's a commercial use,
Right.
But then I don't know, like I think in our business we struggle so much to get revenue and respect and attention that when things are credited, then it's great, and when they're not, it feels like a bit of a like something's been stolen from you.
Mm.
All right, I'm gonna hit refresh one more time. The artwork, it's looking awesome, everybody. Wow.
Oh man,
Devin,
Devin, that looks
Nice.
fantastic.
oh, Pete Castle.
Pete, good
Greg
job,
Rhodes.
man. Really good, Peter.
That's
Oh
awesome.
my God.
I
Oh
love that one.
wow.
Oh,
That's great.
Uh-oh.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right, since this isn't about me, I'm gonna go. So thank you guys.
Matthew, thank you.
Yeah,
so
Thank
much.
you,
Matthew, thank you
Matthew.
so much.
Bye,
man.
Chris.
Hey, Matt, I'll see you soon.
All right.
This is awesome. I love it.
Oh, Karen, great job.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I love it.
I'm going to be flying through it. I know we got a lot tonight, so this is awesome, though. I love it. Oof.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, really nice. Oh,
Great.
so good.
Oh, love it. All on one page.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, good job.
Wow.
Nice, Jillian.
Oh, awesome, Marcy.
Marcy, that's wonderful.
I love
Good
that.
job, Rebecca.
Pretty debonair. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
man, y'all had a really good night. Oh, lovely. So delicate.
Yeah, looking at this. Wow,
Thanks,
Jillian.
Jillian.
Nice one, Julian.
Felicity.
Oh, Felicity.
Great.
It's funny how the Nick Offerman ones really look like master works because of being
Color.
transferred into like
Yeah.
painting or drawing, and because of the classical trope already in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones of Lucy end up looking like a Renoir or something, right? Like
It makes me
but-
think of like John Singer Sargent.
yeah.
Oh, that's cool,
Yeah,
Sally.
that's great.
Felicity,
Felicity.
one of our youngest artists.
It's 11.
Wow. Fun.
Nice, Leslie.
Ooh, that's
Oh,
awesome.
Gary.
Wow.
So good. This photo, I meant to say, it reminded me of an Andrew Wyeth painting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Totally.
awesome.
Cool, Tyler.
There's another one, Gary. Oh, that's
Oh.
great.
So good. Oh, you even got, oh, that was really good.
Oh, I love that.
Oh yeah, I should have done that. That's what I should
That's
have done.
cool.
I should have done that.
I think that would like every other post, you know.
Well, that's
Yeah.
Really good
Yeah.
Oh, these are
So
great.
these are all through the hashtag.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. There will be more too. That usually
Wow.
in the next couple of days we'll see a few more come through as well. These are great. Unbelievable.
I'm always shocked by how much artwork was produced in just
Ooh.
a couple of hours. You know?
Right?
Jeff, that was
I mean,
cool.
That
The
was awesome.
speed
Jeff.
is the speed alone is insane.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. All right. Oh, I
Oh,
like that
nice
one too.
textures there.
What's nuts is
Yeah.
we're not even through the first two poses, so I'm like I'm going faster than usual. Yeah. Love it. Really. Oh, that's so great.
That's nice.
Oh, so fun.
Well, it's fun when you, because I love the interpretations of their expressions, because some of them become like a little bit like you're capturing the kind of sadness in Lucy's face often,
Mhm.
you know, and I love seeing that. This is great.
Oh, cool, Jeff.
Look at that napkin.
Wow.
It's
Peter.
rice paper, or sometimes he does it on coffee filters.
Yeah, it's great.
That's great.
Love it.
That's great.
Oh, fun. Whoa, that's trippy. That's kind of scary.
Really, really fun.
Yeah. Oh, that might be.
Oh,
Oh,
that's great.
nice. Pancake and Annie. That
That
had like a
must-
Peter DeSav feel to it.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a nice one too.
Ooh,
Oh,
Yeah,
Randy.
Randy.
Oh, Randy, you and Nate are drawn together tonight?
That's stunning. I love it.
Oh,
And the
cool.
way they handled the hair with Kendrick, that was awesome.
Oh, good job, Sally.
Nice.
Ooh, that's nice.
Oh,
Wow.
really, really
Awesome.
good job.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. All right.
I like
That's-
how you handled the color there. That was a nice solution.
Oh, that's beautiful.
great.
Good job.
The eyes.
Hmm.
That's great too.
New artist, thanks for joining. Wow.
Oh, so fun. Jeff always has so many. It's impressive.
Oh, that's cool.
My
That's
God.
great.
love it. Unbelievable. Gosh, how many people were drawing with us tonight? This is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Amazing.
Ooh, good job, Sienna.
Oh, that's great. I always love wondering like what celebrities think when they get like 50 photos drawn of them in one night.
I know. Does it freak
What
them out that
happened?
suddenly they're just like tagged?
Have you
There's
guys
like a
heard from Serena
publicist
yet?
that's like,
You're gonna get like an angry like chain of comments from Serena.
yeah. Oh wow.
Oh, fun. Nicole, I liked that.
I'm hoping that like Nick Offerman will see these and he'll offer to buy every single piece and then
Yeah.
just hang them
Do
around
it.
his office.
We're hoping that too.
Yeah.
If he does that, I'm gonna draw one real quick. Throw it in there.
That's great.
Oh man, this is amazing. All right, that was the last one. Awesome. Chris, this has been such a treat. Thank you so much for
Thank you
Yeah, I
so
told
much,
you.
Chris.
Yeah, thank you so much,
This
Chris.
is amazing.
Very nice
Super
talking.
fun.
We feel really, really grateful to have you here. And it's
Yeah, I'll be announcing my retirement tomorrow morning. You'll see.
That's good. If you
everybody,
could do that right at midnight, we'd appreciate that.
Okay. I'm setting my watch. Okay.
Yeah.
all right. Everybody, have a nice night. Thank you for sharing your art with us. And join us next Thursday. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have a great
you.
week,
Bye.
everybody.